Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to a brand new video, ladies and gentlemen. Today I thought I'd make a special video today to show you guys the materials in which the New Testament, the original New Testament, were actually written in. Just to give you guys background context, the New Testament were written in Greek. I quote-unquote New Testament because it wasn't until the 4th century, towards the end of the 4th century, whereby 27 books are declared canonical, and these are the books that we found in the New Testament today. Way before that as well, around the year 350 of the Common Era also, we have books that are thought to be canonical. For example, we have the Shepherd of Hermas and things like that, which are not found in the New Testament today. And so I just want to share with you guys that this New Testament were not written in modern paper like we have today. Rather, they're also not written in parchment, although much later they were written in parchment. But earlier on, for the most part, the New Testament were actually written, or the books within the New Testament were actually written in papyrus. Now I have here with me papyrus, and this is the original papyrus from Egypt, which I have here. Now, to identify within a real papyrus and a fake papyrus, all you have to do is to shine the light through. And once you shine the light through, you can see, I'm trying to look here, you can see the layers, because how papyrus were made is actually that the stem of the papyrus plant, they will actually roll to remove the sugar, because the sugar will actually make the papyrus weak. And so once the papyrus stem, the outer layers, obviously the outer layers of the stem were removed and were used to make sandals and things like that. And so the inner layer, they will roll to remove sugar and also to flatten it out. And so as you can see here, maybe I'll demonstrate much closer so you can see. So you can see here that this is the papyrus layer here, where my light is shining through. This is actually layer by layer. They were actually lay on top of one another, and then they were pressed. Before that, they were soaked in water for about 2 weeks, and the longer you soak the papyrus in water, the darker the color will be. Now papyrus like this normally was soaked in water for about a week or so, 6 days or so. If you soak them for 2 weeks, it will be much darker. But you can see here that this papyrus is actually being done this way, and then this way, and then this way, and then this way, vertically and then horizontally. And so they were layered. As you can see here, there's a quick fix here, because this is certainly out of the blue, and so no two papyrus are the same. This is how papyrus is made. I'm going to show you another piece of papyrus here. I'm going to compare them. As you can see, this is another piece of the papyrus that I have. If I shine the light through it, you can see that no two papyrus is actually the same, and this is what makes it interesting, absolutely interesting. You can write them on both sides, doesn't matter. You see, because in the ancient world, they were written on both sides, and they were binded to become codices, which is the modern name for books. So in the ancient world, when people refer to books, they were actually not referring to modern books. Okay, during the time of the Jews or the Israelites, books were normally referred to as scroll. Okay, this papyrus, for example, if we have Paul must have been writing his letters, or at least the authentic one, or at least dictated it to Timothy and Titus, or Barnabas, and they must have been writing on this papyrus. And they must have carried with them papyrus, and they would roll it like this, and so they must have been carrying this with them. And so it is actually really interesting to note that actually Paul uses papyrus, and this is authentic papyrus from Egypt, as I've shown you how to determine between a real papyrus and a forged a fake papyrus, an imitation one. And so no two pieces of papyrus are actually the same, as I have here side by side, and I shine the light through. And so this is something really interesting to see, to note that no two papyrus are the same. So and this is what makes the craft interesting. Now, what type of pens the Apostle Paul must have been using? Now, there are many debates as to what type of pens he must have been using, but normally if we go by the normative consensus, they must have been using materials like this. This is called the reed pen. Now, I have here the Zen pen, okay, just the name for it, and this is made out of bamboo. So in the ancient world, they would have like a knife. They would carve it. They would carve the bamboo and make it into a pen like this. Okay, this is a slightly higher version, a higher model of it. And so they must have been using this to write on papyrus, to scribble their notes away. Maybe I can just let you hear how it sounds. I think it's one of the best sounds. Like, it's one of the best sound that I've heard. This is actually, if you are into Arabic calligraphy, you'll probably notice that the calligraphy pen is slightly shorter in length and is not as thick as this, and it is two-sided, meaning the straight edge is is on two sides. Those are not the same type of pens that the ancient scribes were using. If you look at all these pictures or paintings of the early church, you'll find something closer towards this reed pen or bamboo pen, whereby there's a hole in it. Okay, in the modern world, these were used to store inks, but in the ancient world, they would dip it. They would dip it in something like, probably have a bamboo like this. They would dip the ink, and then this is actually a real bamboo cup here. And so they would actually write like this. It would take them probably weeks to actually finish writing for untrained scribes, because they will make mistakes and then they would change the text. They will make mistakes again, because in the ancient world, not a lot of people are actually learned. Reading was okay, but writing is, according to some scholars, writing is something that not a lot of people can actually do. And so the early New Testament books contains tons and tons of mistakes, because they were not written by trained scribes. They were written by anyone that is educated in a sense. Only about 3% of the ancient world, or the ancient Palestinian, were actually able to read and write. Now, reading was a different craft, and writing was also a different craft. Similar to today, if you go to the slightly less developed countries, a lot of people are able to speak, are able to read, but not a lot of them are able to write. And so in the ancient world, the numbers are slightly way extravagant. They're way higher. Now, papyrus like this today will cost you tons and tons of money, unless you go to Egypt directly and buy them in bulk. Now, the other thing is that the reason why papyrus do not survive or do not withstand the test of time is that because they thaw easily. One example, as you can see here, See, they thaw easily. And so if you look at ancient manuscripts, you'll find that a lot of these ancient manuscripts, the sides here would have been torn apart and things like that. Now, one great example which I can show you is the ancient manuscripts that has been reproduced, something like this. I don't know if you can see here. See, this is the papyrus material, and so you can see the sides here are all worn out and torn apart because they tear off easily. Okay, and this is the same materials that they used to write. Okay, probably using the same pen, reed pen, like this, that you dip in ink. Now, in the modern world, normally if you want to do this type of craft, which I'm interested in, which is why I have papyrus to begin with, I use this sort of ink. This is the Bombay black ink, by the way, famous amongst calligraphers and all these people because I don't know, because it works. But you can use in the ancient world how they used to make ink is also interesting. I do not have the time or the capability to demonstrate you how inks were made, but the text of the New Testament, a book written by Professor Bruce Metzger, the late Professor Bruce Metzger, you'll find chapters on papyrus, chapters on ink making, on parchment, and things like that. And so I thought I wanna read to you the origins of papyrus. And by the way, this is the ancient Egyptian writing here, hieroglyphs, which I'm also studying. But yeah, this is a whole set of papyrus directly from Egypt. I'm not sponsored in any way. I just, because I love this sort of art, to go back to the ancient world and see the materials that they use, and that is the reason pretty much why I study the ancient manuscripts, or actually like to look at photos of ancient manuscripts, and try to be like the people of the past who actually take the craft seriously, and yeah, which is why I love the study of religion, because there's so much history attached to it, not only when it comes to political history, but also when it comes to art, when it comes to craft also, and especially the materials that they use is just so unique. It is not prevalent in the modern world. You cannot use an ink pen like this to write. It would work, but it would smudge, and so it doesn't really work in a sense. And yeah, so it is something that is different, which is why I'm interested, heavily invested in, as you can see. But yeah, papyrus, I'll read to you the entire thing here, just so that at least you learn something from this video. Papyrus is an early form of paper made from the pith of the papyrus plant. Okay, this is a plant growing in wetlands to a maximum height of about 15 feet or around 5 meters, and was once abundant in the Nile Delta of Egypt. Papyrus is first known to have been used in ancient Egypt at least as far back as the first dynasty. Okay, depending on which dating you go for, some scholars have actually dated the ancient Egyptian civilization to begin around 5000 BCE, but the more academic dating is around 3500 BCE, and so it goes far back as 3500 BCE. But it was also widely used throughout the Mediterranean region, as well as inland parts of Europe and Southwest Asia. The English word papyrus derives via Latin from the Greek papyrus. Okay. The process was originally invented by the Chinese and moved east until the Egyptians adopted it into use. It soon became a popular product as papyrus can grow almost anywhere, although it does not fare well in cold climates. Being a versatile product, it was used for a variety of purposes, even in the making of shoes. And if you look at all these ancient Egyptians artifacts, they found that a lot of this, the outer layer of papyrus plant or the stem were used to make sandals, basket, and things like that. A sheet of papyrus is made from the stem of the plant. The outer rind is first stripped off, and the sticky fibrous inner pith is cut lengthwise into thin strips of about 40 centimeters long. The strips are then placed side by side on a hard surface with their edges slightly overlapping, and then another layer of strip is laid on top at a right angle. To explain, basically, if I have a sheet of papyrus here, let's just pretend that this is the sheet of papyrus that I have. Okay, so the first sheet of papyrus will lay like this, and then the other sheet will lay like this. Okay, and then another one will lay like this. Okay, and then another one will lay like this, and so it gets on and on and on and on until it becomes a papyrus. And it becomes like this, as you can see here. Okay, no two sheets of papyrus are the same, and you can see there's a lot of holes in here because of how the papyrus is dried and the different quality of the papyrus plant. The strips may have been soaked in water long enough for decomposition to begin, perhaps increasing adhesion, but this is not certain. While still moist, the two layers are hammered together, smashing the layers into a single sheet. The sheet is then dried under pressure. After drying, the sheet of papyrus is polished with some rounded object, possibly a stone. To form the long strip that a scroll required, a number of sheets were united so that all the horizontal fibers parallel with the roll's length were on one side, all the vertical fibers on the other. The resulting product was of different grades depending on the manufacturing process and on the quality of the raw materials. Higher quality fine sheets were used in important documents and accounts, while rougher sheets were more readily available. Although only a very small minority of the Egyptian population was able to read and write. Also, if you study ancient Egyptian civilization, you know that they also have their priests and their scribes, and they are the ones who draw all these hieroglyphics, painting, who made all these hieroglyphics paintings, and who wrote the papyrus of Ani, the Book of the Dead. So these are very, very interesting things. In a dry climate like that of Egypt, papyrus is stable, and therefore scripts going back thousands of years still survive, the oldest one being around 5,000 years old. And so, only in the climate of Egypt, whereby you have a lot of these, especially in a city called Oxyconchus, if I pronounce that correctly, you'll find a lot of these. It used to be a rubbish heap, and then you find a lot of these apocryphal books. Okay, like the Gospel of Thomas, for example, were found there. If I'm not mistaken, the Gospel of Peter were found in Akhmin, actually in a tomb of a monk that excavators actually found it. And so papyrus is a very, very, very interesting thing, and it comes today. You can purchase in like an A4 size. This is probably an A4. I have an A4 sheets of paper here. Let's make the comparison. Yeah, this is an A4 sheet of A4 here. Yeah, about A4. You can also order in A5 in different sizes. You can also order them in a huge chunk like this, and depending on the papyrus maker that you purchase from, the quality might be different. As you can see here, the bigger papyrus, this is a slightly more expensive papyrus, and so the quality is much better comparing it to the the A4 size. This is about A3. As you can see, no two papyrus is the same. Yeah, and so this is just really interesting. Also, if you shine light directly to it, you can see that not a lot of light actually go through it, whereas cheaper papyrus or slightly lower grade, you can see that a lot of light actually go through it, because it is not thick. So it depends. There are grades as well. I'm not sure if there's such a thing in the ancient world, but in modern world you definitely have different grades of papyrus. You have a slightly more fragile one, and I believe these slightly more fragile ones were the ones that the ancient New Testament authors actually use, because they are produced on a wide scale, and because also people would just want materials to write on, and so they would not really care so much on quality. But please check me out, could be completely mistaken on this. But today you have, because this is a craft now, and so you start to find that papyrus maker in Egypt and some other parts around the Mediterranean, they would actually increase the rigidity of their papyrus and therefore increase the price as well. Now, to give you an example, I'll make the calculation here. Just give me a second. Okay. So for this single piece of papyrus that I have here, okay, it costs $1.50. For this single piece, it's $1.50. And for this sheet of papyrus that I have here, this costs me $4. So $4 for a single piece of A3 papyrus, a quality one, okay, and $1.50 for a single piece of papyrus that is, I would say, slightly lower in grade. I'll not tell you the name of the manufacturer because I'm not sponsored, and I don't want to, you can go out there and find. If you want to know, you can send me an email and I would tell it to you. But yeah, there are many kinds of papyrus. There are different papyrus maker, as well as reed pen maker, as well as ink maker. If you are into this craft of whereby you want to, learn to write the Old Testament or the New Testament or the Quran using ancient materials, then this is something that you need to explore and do research on. And my videos here hopefully will spark interest in you if you are interested to begin with. And if you're not interested, at least you get to see that it is possible today to own to have the materials that the ancients use, just to put yourself in their shoes and understand their struggle, because if they made a mistake there's no such thing as an eraser. and the least that they can do is to actually rework, okay, although this is not evident, to rework them using the same color of the papyrus, or to stitch them and paste them using other papyrus, using glue, using starch. Actually, they use starch in the past, they don't use glue. And so yeah, hopefully this video benefits you. Hopefully if you are able to feel the papyrus physically on your hands and rub it like that, is very different from modern paper, but it is also not an easy material to use. It is not as strong as modern paper, I would say, because if you put weight to it, this is around 130 GSM comparing it to modern paper, probably about 100 to 130 GSM, whereas a slightly more expensive papyrus like this one is probably around 160 GSM or 180. Definitely not 200, because I have 250 GSM and 160 GSM printing paper, which I use for my printers. But yeah, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Arfat. Hope this video benefits you, and I'll see you on my next one. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.